Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Truth Defender podcast. We are coming to you from the greatest country in the world, deep in the heart of the Lone Star State, Dallas, Texas. I'm your host, Paul Aguilar. We really appreciate you guys stopping in for another episode. If you guys are catching us on YouTube and you aren't already a subscriber, please make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, as well as the like button. That really helps out a lot. And also hit that bell icon so you don't miss an episode in the future as well. If you guys are on the go and you want to check us out, you guys can find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, as well as iHeartRadio at Truth Defender Podcast. All of our social media will be down below: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We jumped on locals as well, so that's a brand new one. We have a Discord as well. You guys can jump on in there and chat with us, send us some pictures and stuff like that. If you guys have any questions or comments for myself or our guests or topic recommendations, you can always send that to us at thetruthDefender1776@gmail.com. Our next guest is Mr. Joedy Cook. Mr. Cook is the head of the North American Dogman Project. He's also a retired U.S. Army and Iraq war vet. He's one of the most active dogman and Bigfoot researchers in the state of Ohio. Originally, he was a member of the Cincinnati UFO research group, A.S.K, but quickly realized that his interests were more in the field of cryptozoology. Joedy has been studying the dogman and Bigfoot phenomenon since 1991 and is the author of several books, which I'm sure we'll jump on in briefly on those as well. He founded the North American Dogman Project, Cryptid Seekers, and the Ohio Center for Bigfoot Studies. Very busy. Mr. Joedy Cook, how you doing today, sir?
Pretty good, sir. About yourself?
Not too bad. I really appreciate you jumping on, as I mentioned before.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it seems like you've been kind of extremely busy in the past here. First off, I just want to say thank you for your service. Obviously, that's
thank you.
First and foremost, appreciate it. So Dogman and Bigfoot. I guess we can kind of jump into what prompted you to, start those organizations in the first place. Had you always been kind of a believer in Dogman and Bigfoot, or how did that, start?
Yeah, I've always been interested, even as a kid. I remember the first time, seeing something dealing with Bigfoot. It was when I went to a drive-in with my family, and we went and saw Planet of the Apes, and they showed a Patterson film as a trailer going into the Planet of the Apes movies, and it was like, wow, I was just fascinated with it. And then going to see The Legend of Boggy Creek as a kid, excuse me, I mean, that scared the heck out of me. And I just always, was always into, the monster stuff. And it was just a passion, that I had. Got into, UFO research in Cincinnati. And we did this, for about 8 years, we had a live TV show that we did. Now, back then, excuse me, in the 80s and the 90s, everything was done on public access TV. Cable wasn't out yet. So you rented time through, the public access show to do your show. So we did this live show the first Wednesday of every month. And it was dealing with UFOs, and we were getting a lot of Bigfoot stuff and other cryptids. So myself and George Clappers decided, let's go and investigate this stuff. And that's how I fell into the Bigfoot stuff and absolutely loved it. I mean, it was a great obsession. And I actually seen one on a U.S. Army base when I was in the Army. Me and 3 other guys seen one. Yeah, so it just validated the, the authenticity, of the subject.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely. So I was actually stationed in Charleston, South Carolina for a while, and out there it's kind of middle of nowhere almost. Not too many people know there's actually like a base out there, but it's kind of a weird thing that in that area there's like a lot of forests. It's like deep in the woods, and you're way out there, and you'd always hear stories. Now I'd never seen anything out there personally, but I would speak to guys that had been there longer than I had been, say like, hey man, like in the woods at night you hear such and such, and if you go out into the woods, it was weird. It was kind of like like our barracks, but there was no like fencing around. It was just like woods all the way back to
Right.
all the way back to
Right.
the river. And they would say things like, we would see things at night, or I never really chalked it up to anything. We used to live with a bunch of Marines, so it was kind of like maybe you guys are just drinking at night and you just saw or you thought you saw something. But then I started speaking to like chiefs and like CEOs and ensigns that I used to know, and they were like, hey, I used to see like this and that out in the woods, and then it started to click a little bit more, like well, maybe there was stuff out there, um, which is like an odd thing. You don't really get too many servicemen speaking out. I've tried. There's like a lot of guys that I know that they have stories about being in Afghanistan and seeing things or whatever, but
Mhm.
it's kind of a hard thing to actually get them to speak about it. And it's just odd that you would see a lot of, Bigfoot and mostly dogmen on military bases, which I've heard stories about uh, quite consistently from a lot of people. So that's always interesting. It kind of makes you think, are they creating them, or, what's going on? That's always one of the bigger questions that I've always had.
Well, it's weird. You know, some of the most active military bases, especially Army bases. I don't know about any of the other branches, but I know with the Army, Fort Benning, Georgia, Fort Ord, California, um, Fort Linwood, Missouri. These are like the most active bases of having sightings
Right.
of cryptids. Camp Grayling, where I saw mine, uh, was not an uncommon thing for troops to see them. I mean, you would see tracks out in when you're out in the training area. The roads were like either dirt, like a real loose dirt or sand, and
Mm.
you would see the tracks where this thing would walk down.
Right.
And at night, you would hear these screams, um, bone chilling screams, and like you said, these bases they're active. The reason why they're active because they're you have all this heavy wooded training area where these things live, and most of them go outside of the military reservation and to civilian grounds and stuff. So a lot of these places don't have fences, you
Yeah.
know to stop people from coming in. And I mean, I've talked to a lot of people that that has had some really good stories of sightings on military bases. And I've been getting a lot of reports on dogman coming out of Iraq and Afghanistan, from troops that served over there. I saw some weird things over there, when I was there, but nothing like a dog man or anything like that. When we were in Kuwait, there was actually which was kind of neat, in Kuwait City where the harbor is. There's a lake monster in that lake, and they feed it, and I mean this thing's huge, and it shows itself. It's really it's amazing. You know,
Yeah, it's definitely odd. So you guys are actually based out of Ohio, right? Is that how where you guys are at?
yeah, Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, okay. And is that like a hotspot for Dogman? Is there a lot of stories out there?
Well, Cincinnati, we've had a few dogman sightings here. We've had a few Bigfoot sightings. We have the Loveland Frogman, which is right outside of Cincinnati. Um, but the closest thing to Cincinnati is a little town called Germantown, Ohio. Now, Germantown, Ohio, has a creature up there they call the Germantown Werewolf. But back in the 70s, they called it the Butter Street Monster. See, Ohio is all farmland. It's flat land. We're dairy, we're pork. Okay. And if you're on the main highways, you're it's a boring drive because it's country and corn all on the sides there,
Right.
and the only civilizations when you get into the towns and so forth. So this area called Germantown, when they were building up the town and start putting in residential areas, they started with this one particular area, which they named Butter Street. So they went in, about a mile and a half in, and just built houses on there. So it was in deep into the woods. So as people living there, they would see this strange creature. They were, their dogs, their cats were coming up missing. Just a lot of weird stuff. And when they see it, they described it as a werewolf, and they called it the Butter Street Monster. But like you said, now they call it the Germantown Werewolf. And yeah, it's this one particular road that this thing stays on, and the DNR is actually put blocks on each side of the road, or gates rather, so to keep people like off this road where this thing is. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, it's like, so how widespread are you guys? Do you guys have like chapters throughout
Yeah.
throughout the country?
The North American Dogman Project is the largest dogman research organization on planet Earth. We have 800 plus members worldwide. We have chapters on all continents, even Africa, because we're getting reports from all these different people from all these different countries, and they're fascinated with the subject. So they asked if they could start a chapter there, and we're getting it. I mean, we just started 2 chapters in India, and these are guys that were military
Right.
that started the chapter over there. And they're reporting stuff this because they're seeing these things on the Indian Chinese border, and these things are actually killing Indian troops and Chinese troops, and it's actually caused several conflicts between the Chinese and the Indians over this thing, because they don't know who was killing their people.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely odd. I mean, now that you speak of that, I've definitely heard, between the conflict out there, that they would see like UFOs as well out there, and
Hmm.
it's like a weird thing that's going on out on the border out there. But it, it would be logical that, if UFOs are coming down to see what we're doing, like with nuclear sites and things like that, they'd
Hmm.
be definitely be interested in seeing what was going on, especially between 2 countries going to war with each other.
Right.
They could possibly destroy each other. But I've definitely heard stories of UFOs out there. I never heard any kind of stories of dogmen out there. That's definitely interesting.
Yeah, it is. And even our own southern border,
Right.
we received several reports from border patrol agents. I talk to one frequently as a very, very good friend of mine, that lived in Cincinnati before he left to go take a job at the border patrol. We worked together. We're animal control officers at the time, and this was before I went into the army. And he said these things are on the border. They know they're there. Every single um, border patrol agents have seen them. They have found migrant bodies that have been literally ripped apart, uh, you know, on the border. They're finding tracks. They're telling them, not to go after this thing. Don't shoot at it. Don't do anything, to it. You report it. Migrants are talking about it when they're coming over the border, because it's attacking them. So
Mhm.
it's a real thing. But this kind of stuff you'll never hear on the news, because this is so tight and kept so much as a secret with the border patrol, that if this ever got out, uh, it would cause chaos along the border, because you would have different political parties you know blaming other political parties for this, and somehow it becomes a political thing, and not look at a really threat to humanity.
Yeah, it's so I guess, where do you kind of fall on where you think dogmen come from? Do you think they've been created by the military, as a lot of people think, or is it just maybe they've just been here a lot longer than we have? Just like the Bigfoot, it's just always been here. Like, where do you kind
Well,
of fall on that?
the thing of it is, if you look at history itself, there have always been what they consider dog-headed men.
Right.
You can find them in Viking mythology, Greek mythology, um, Eastern European mythology. And give you the perfect example, the Vatican has a painting of Saint Christopher, And in that painting, he is wearing, he has a dog's head.
Right.
He does not have a human's head. The story behind this is that he belonged to a race of dog-headed people. The Catholic Church destroyed them. He was the only survivor. They taught him Christianity, and he ended up becoming a priest. He ends up becoming a saint, and that's why we see him as Saint Christopher. Now, as time is going forward here, the Catholic Church could not present a individual with a dog head or an animal's head because that's paganism, and the people would never accept it. So they had to put a human head on him. And now all the new paintings of him will now have human heads. Right. So we know, and even in Iraq, when I was there, I talked with people that talked about a dog-headed race of people that, traded with the people, and at the time it was called Mesopotamia. And the Iraqis knew about this. They lived in the Kandahar Valley. And not the Kandahar Valley, excuse me. They lived in the northern part of Iraq by the Turkish border. And everybody knew about them back then. And they dealt with them. They traded with them, spoke with them because they were able to speak their language. So there's a whole line of history dealing with dog-headed men. So these things have always been here. Now, Dogman today, is this some type of ancestors of these people? Because, most of them were killed off by different groups of civilized people, more or less. And these are what's left over, and they're more feral now. Like, if you have a pig and you let a pig go, the pig comes feral. Same thing with these things. Is that the possibility? It could be a possibility. There's something that's already here. Are they extraterrestrial? Now, that's a good answer. And I'm going to tell you a story here, if I have the time. There was a Air Force officer that contacted us and told us this amazing story about let me kind of rephrase this here. The U.S. Space Force has always been here. Okay. It was way here before President Trump told everybody that, he was creating one. And in the Space Force, they dealt with up to 27 different species of alien, he said. And there's one particular species of alien that what they did was they would go from planet to planet, and they would have these droids or drones. And what they were are clones, more or less. I'm sorry. I had two mini glasses of wine before I talked to you. I was trying to get relaxed for the show. These clones were what he said they were like dogs.
Right.
Okay. And what they would do, they would go to a planet. They would release these clones on the planet to create havoc. They would come in, save the planet, destroy the clones, and infiltrate into society and into the government. And eventually they take over. Well, we knew what they were doing, and that's why it never happened to us. So that's the only type of extraterrestrial information I would have, that if these things were extraterrestrial. I truly believe they're more flesh and blood, in that they have always been here.
Okay. Yeah, it's more, I mean, you even hear stories about like the Native Americans way back then, saying that they would see them fighting with Bigfoot, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have any kind of evidence or like stories about them coming face to face with Bigfoot, or like them, being around the same place together?
Right. See, where I in Ohio, we have Cherokee and we have the Shawnee. Okay. Now the Shawnee fought with them, and they called them the Big Blue Giants. Okay. Because what they would do, they would come in, they would take their food, they would take their children, they would take the, females, they would take, regular warriors, and they were cannibals. And what happened at one point, they decided they had enough, and they went and killed them off. And here in a little bit north of Cincinnati, there's a Native American museum, because Ohio is very well known for Native American stuff. We have mounds and artifacts and everything that came out of the Ohio area. And they have a battle axe in this museum. And this battle axe is one that the Shawnee used against the big blue giants. And it's fascinating. This thing, it's a large stone on a stick. I mean, this thing must be heavy, but it was able, what they were able to do to, I guess, to crush their skulls. So we know about this with the Shawnee. The Cherokee knew everything about Bigfoot. They knew to stay away from it. They knew it was not right, but they considered it a Native American. They considered it another Indian tribe. So the Cherokee have a dance they call the booger dance. And what this dance is, that a characteristic of a wild man or a wild woman of the woods would dance around in a circle with children and have a basket on its back. And it would basically tell the children, if you're not good, if you don't pay attention to your parents, if you go into the woods by yourself, the wild man or the wild woman of the woods would take you away and eat you. Okay. So this is when, whites were going west, and they're, meeting up with the different Native American tribes, picking up different cultures, different folklores and stuff. And this is where the boogeyman comes into Western culture in America. If you don't go to bed at night, the boogeyman's going to get you. It goes back to the Cherokee dance, the booger dance.
That's definitely interesting.
Yeah. So most all Native American tribes have some type of characteristic of Bigfoot, not just here in the United States, but in Canada, as well as some of the native tribes in Mexico.
Right. Yeah, I've definitely heard stories about the ones in Mexico. It's is there any kind of, I guess, part of the map that, I mean, you mentioned that you have chapters in Africa, stuff like that, but are there certain areas that when you found out that there was stories coming out of there, that it was just like a surprise, I guess, that that they would be out that far? Or
yeah, I mean, we especially like in Africa, giving a perfect example, our chapter there, the guys sit there and said, listen, we know what an ape looks like, we know what a lion looks like, we know what a hyena looks like. Okay, the two cryptids that they have here in my country, which was Zimbabwe, he said one of them is a walking hairy man, which is a variation of Bigfoot.
right.
It has ape characteristics, but it has human characteristics. The other one is this canine, walking canine, that looks more like a hyena than it does a dog. But what makes that case so usual is that we're getting reports, not just here in the United States, but in different other countries, of a canine variation that looks like a hyena, like the beast of land between the lakes here in Kentucky. That particular beast, Dogman, looks more hyena than it does like an actual wolf. So that made it very interesting.
Yeah, and is there, I guess, obviously speaking to, different kinds, are those kind of like the two main ones you hear of? I guess when it comes to variations, is it more like a dog, or how does that
Well,
kind of
it's definitely canine. Now, there's different variations of Dogman. They come into different things like type 1, type 2 canine. It just depends on the researcher and how he does it. The North American Dogman Project, this is how we do it. You have what we consider a type 1. Okay, type 1 is something that looks very body-wise like a human, but with a canine's head.
Right.
Okay, these are the ones that get misidentified as Bigfoot. Then you have the type 2s that we have, which is very canine looking body, but the feet are more human. They're not, and the legs are more human. They're not like a dog's leg. So just imagine just a regular werewolf, Van Helsing style werewolf, or a werewolf from the Howling or something like that, but more human legs instead of canine legs. And then you have the canine variation, which is extremely all canine. Just looks like a regular wolf that's on two legs. And then you have the ones that look like your hyenas. You have some that are looking like a typical dog, but with a much, much smaller snout, which you can say werewolf looking or wolfman looking, but more with a canine type body. If you understand what I'm saying here.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
they're just different variations. Each organization out there has different variations of what they consider, but basically they're all the same.
Right. Do you guys ever get any kind of instances where they attack humans, or do they find cases where it's just like attacking animals on the farm, or how does that
Oh
whole
yeah.
thing kind of
Oh
play
my
out?
God. Yes. We've had so many I have so many pictures and in our organization where they attacked horses, where they attack livestock, there's one guy in northern Ohio that he had a kennel where he raised German shepherds.
Right.
He had 18 German shepherds. Okay. And he's walking out in the woods where he lives at the very rural area, a lot of woods and stuff. He's out there with his daughter. His daughter sees it first. He sees it. They walk back real slow to get back to the house. 2 days later, he wakes up in the morning. One of his German shepherds are ripped apart. Okay. And then it goes the following night. He lost 8 German shepherds in 3 days, where this thing got literally tore into the kennel and killed these dogs. And I've got the pictures, and it's horrendous what it did to these dogs. I even have the veterinary report and the X-rays of the animals. I mean, this thing is just for no reason it killed them. Didn't eat them. It just killed them. And finally, he got to the point. He says, I'm losing money. I can't do this. I can't let my something happen to my little girl because I'm a single father. And he packed up and left. We have that case. We have cases where people have had horses that were attacked. And what's so unusual about these pictures with the horses, they have the claw marks on the chest of the horse. So the horse was actually fighting off what this thing was. Now, most predators, when they attack like large game, they always attack from the back.
Right.
Okay. But there are some cases where they did attack the back, but there was also where they were attacking the front. And we have this one really good photograph of this large horse, and there's 5 scrape marks going down the front of the chest. Perfect 5 of them. And the horse survived, but the horse fought back. So
Right.
we have a lot. So we have a lot of this. Give an example: Germantown, where Anthony Road is, where all the new stuff is happening. Well, when you're on Anthony Road, in order to get there, you have to cross a bridge because there's a river there. Small little river. No more than 4 foot of water, but the edges are about 6.5, 7 feet up. Well, this thing was able to carry a cow over that river because the bridge is blocked off. You can't get on the bridge.
Right.
Was able to carry a cow down the edge, go across the river, take it up to the other side, and feed on it. Okay, that happened twice on that road. And there's no predators in Ohio that is big enough and strong enough to take down a cow.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Definitely.
know, we have bears in Ohio, but they're all in the north west part of the state. We have coyotes down here, but there was no marks on the legs where the coyotes were biting on the legs to get it down.
Right.
I mean, nothing whatsoever. There's no way this cow could have got over there. There's just no possible way unless it was carried over.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. When you start seeing large livestock being taken away, definitely in areas where they couldn't possibly get to by themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's nuts. It really is.
Yeah. I was looking at the map here that you guys have on the website of, sightings and such. It looks like all the concentration of sightings mostly this time would probably be more up kind of like in the northeast part of the country.
Correct.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's the biggest. That is the biggest hotspot from Illinois, Wisconsin area,
Right.
going all the way up to New Jersey, going all the way down to Tennessee. That particular, all those area states there are the biggest hotspots. Then you have, the Texas and Louisiana area, which is some of the biggest hotspots down there. Yeah, the Four Corners area, and you have California.
Yeah.
Those seem to be the biggest spots.
Yeah, I was looking at, I mean, a couple of the ones that you have here on the map in Texas. I mean, there's one in Collin County, which is about 45 minutes from where I'm at right now. So that doesn't that doesn't make me feel too
We that we're still updating that map. I mean, we're
right,
getting
right,
stuff in every day. I mean, we're week behind on just adding more and more stuff on, onto the map there. Yeah, I mean, there's stuff coming in all the time, and we're getting to the point where we're starting to add a lot more onto the Canadian side, and going to be putting up a world map. So all the stuff that's coming in from into the North American Dogman Project from our outside chapters are going to be put into that particular area. So yeah,
right.
it's interesting the stuff that's coming in.
Yeah, it's definitely. I was taking a look at some of the areas that you actually have marked on the map. Here in Texas, some of those areas are quite remote. Out there between Fort Worth, like between Midland, Odessa, and Abilene, that's
Mm,
kind of out there. There's nothing really out there for a few hundred miles. Like I mentioned, the one here in Collin County,
mhm.
it's kind of a populated area. It's not too remote. Even the one in Freestone as well. That's kind of between Dallas and Houston, but it's not too far outside of Dallas. I mean, you still got Waco on out that way as well, so you're still kind of in the city, which is kind of a little freaky, especially for the people who live out there.
Mhm.
It's not too remote. Fredericksburg as well is
I
not remote at all.
Yeah, Texas right now is becoming a very big hotspot. But like we're not putting any of the stuff that's on the map from um, the Border Patrol.
Right.
Okay, one for the simple fact we don't want any issues with people going out into those areas where it's going to interrupt what's going on with the day in and day out operations with the Border Patrol.
Right.
So we're leaving that stuff out there, and plus we have to sit there and protect the identity of Border Patrol agents that are coming forward. And these guys are very good. They have no problem showing identification and verification that they're legitimate guys.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely it's always kind of like the problem that you would run into, especially when you have people that are professionals that way,
Hmm.
law enforcement and such. They don't want to go out on a limb, stick their neck out. And I understand they don't want, anything to happen to their careers and such. I have a lot of family that are law enforcement in like El Paso, which is where I'm from originally. And I also have family in the Border Patrol. So I kind of know how that works as well. But um, one thing I was extremely curious about is, do you guys ever have any reported sightings of like dogmen within the city? You know,
Oh
speaking
yeah.
to that, it's kind of like I can understand like a lot of people having sightings out on their farms or like in the woods when they go hunting, but like actually seeing them, maybe running through like a neighborhood or something, that's always interested me.
Yeah, actually quite a few. Germantown is one for an example. There was a beauty shop there, and it was on a Saturday morning. There was several females that were in the beauty shop. They were getting their hairs and nails done, and one of them looked over at the window and said, look at that pretty dog looking in the window. It's standing up looking in the window. And they realized it had its hands up on the side of its head,
Wow.
shadowing, the light so it can look in. And it moved back and it walked on
Right.
two legs. And they ran to the window and they sat there and they watched it walk off.
Hmm.
You know, um, that is not unusual. We've had quite a few people that on residential areas that have seen these things. Point Pleasant, West Virginia, perfect example. Another one. Down this street, there was one literally walking down the middle of the street. This woman was coming up the road, and another woman was sitting on her porch. She sees this thing walking down the road, a dog, huge dog, which she's described as a werewolf. And a woman was coming in, and she has it right in front of her headlights there. Okay. And she's pulling into her driveway, and this thing just walking down the road. You know, what's so weird is that there's a government installation that's right there on that road that has cameras all over the place. And they said, well, no, we never got anything on camera.
Right.
And it's like you're a top secret government facility. Okay. You have, security guards carrying M4s. Okay. And you want to tell me you didn't get nothing on camera or the cameras weren't working. They got it on camera, whatever it was. They were able to get it, but they're not sharing it with anybody.
Right.
Yeah, it's not unusual to get that.
Yeah. It's so is uh, out of the different variations of different dogmen, the ones that actually stand up and walk and things like that, do they? I was curious if they had any kind of characteristics of being like aware of what they were doing, like if it seemed more like human like, like them walking and them actually being aware that they're being watched, stuff like that.
We've got a couple cases where this woman was in northern Kentucky, was jogging early morning. There was a woods. Um, how the road goes to the sidewalk, and you go down, the hill kind of goes down a little bit and it goes into the woods. Okay.
Right.
So this thing was standing there. She saw that what she described as a werewolf. It was wearing a white shirt
Hmm.
that had blood on it, but she said it was a werewolf like you see in the movies, but it was wearing a white shirt. She said it wasn't like the wolf man. It was like a werewolf, like a dog. And then there was a couple other cases where people have seen them wearing clothing. Okay.
Right.
So what I believe is that if these things are taking human life or, you know, finding clothing or whatever, and they're wearing the clothing to mimic a human, thinking that's disguising them from what they look like.
Right.
Okay. So that's a possibility. It's a far-fetched one, but there's too many cases out there where people have seen, especially Shenango Valley in Pennsylvania. There's a case there where one was wearing clothes, and actually they saw a young one wearing clothes, a juvenile child, like a 8 or 9 year old type child, and it was wearing clothing when they saw it. So um, it's a possibility. It's a possibility that they're mimicking. I think they know that they're different, and I know that they believe that if people see them, they're obviously going to get scared
Right.
because they're a dog or canine. They can sense the fear. But I know it's a weird theory, but I really believe that if they, try to mimic humans to hide their identity, even though they can't change their physical appearance,
Right.
but maybe they believe if they have a shirt on or a pair of pants, that it does. And I mean, it sounds crazy, but if these things exist, if Bigfoot exists, what's the possibility of these things doing this? You have to look at every single possibility because you're getting reports. We're also getting some very odd reports where people have been in cemeteries
Hmm.
and they have been seeing wolves wearing cloaks in the cemetery. Okay, and we've had several reports about that. And another possible theory to that is, biblically, cemeteries were protected by hellhounds.
Right.
Okay, the hellhounds were there to protect the souls from the demons trying to collect take the souls of the dead. Okay, and at some point, the devil dogs have gotten a really bad rep, but that was the whole point of them being there. So these dogmen or dog-headed men that have been seen in cemeteries across the country wearing cloaks could be the hellhounds that are still there to protect the souls. I mean, like you said, we're talking several different states
Right.
where this has been taking place. I mean, it's really odd.
Yeah, it's odd indeed. I was speaking with I don't know if you are aware of who Dark Waters is. Dark
Yeah.
Waters, yeah. So I've had him on the show a few times. We've actually spoken off air, but he we were speaking about Dogman and like the different areas that he's actually heard stories about them. And they actually have this thing now where he's teamed up with some other company that I don't remember right off the top of my head, but they actually set up like not game trail cameras, but like actual like surveillance cameras out in the woods and such,
Hmm.
so you can actually log onto the website and you can see like what's on
Yeah,
the
through
camera.
yes, through DVR system. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, I mean that I highly doubt that they would actually catch anything. It's just one of those things that for some reason it would just be off of the camera, like just enough to where you wouldn't be able to see it, or it would somehow
Well,
like evade it and stuff.
well, here's the thing. The problem is animals can see IR.
Right.
Okay, they can see that on the camera at night, so they know it's there.
Right.
So they're not going to expose themselves to it. Bears are different things. Okay, the bear smells the petroleum that the plastic is made out of on these trail cams, and they'll go in and
Yeah.
eat them.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's happened a bunch of times. But most apex predators, okay, if they smell something that's not right or they see something that's not right, they're not going to directly go to it to attack it unless it becomes a threat to them. They're going to observe it, you know, to monitor it. They're going to sit there and pick whatever scent they can up on it, and they're going to watch it. They're not going to go and attack it. So this is the biggest problem that I think every researcher has when we have trail cams, set up, and you have a bait trap set up in front of the trail cam. They smell the bait trap, but yet they smell the trail cam. They see the IR. They're not going to go towards it. And I think that's one of the biggest problem we have. We got to come up with a new way, be able to you know cover up the IR and make the IR not so noticeable, to not just Dogman or Bigfoot, but the other animals that are out there, other predators.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. It's it's a good thing, I guess, for him because he's the one that actually has to maintain it. So whenever it goes down or something happens with it, he's the one that has to drive out into the middle of nowhere and fix it. And I kept telling him, I was like, man, you
Yeah, it's
you stop doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. But you know, uh, the problem with today also is, and Darkwater knows this too. Uh, the problem is that video can be manipulated.
Yeah.
Okay, and if he gets something that is very, very good, it's going to get questionable. I mean, you know, nothing against him, but you know, that's how these idiots are. You know, there's so many trolls out there. There's so many people that's going to sit there and question it. You know, and it does. You know, it doesn't matter how well known he is. You know, he's going to get his supporters, but he's also going to get people that's going to sit there and you know make an issue out of it because video can be altered.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's probably one of the major pitfalls that we have. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody wants to see it, but when they see any kind of evidence, it's like, oh man, that's fake, whatever. It's just kind of like a double-edged sword. I mean, when somebody catches something that's legitimate and like a really good quality on camera, I mean, how many people are gonna sit there and be like, oh, that's real? Like, I guarantee you, almost everyone's gonna say that it was fake, or they made it somewhere. And it's gonna be unfortunate, whenever we actually catch something that's like great quality, whether it be Bigfoot or aliens or whatever. Um, it's like you said, it's going to be questioned on every level, and
Every single other level, and it's physical evidence is what you need.
yeah.
You know, and I tell my guys, you know, when they're out in the field, you know, have a bio kit,
Mhm.
okay? Because if the possibility that you come across a dead one, okay, do not under any circumstances mutilate the body.
Yeah.
Like try to take the head or take the hands or you know, take the feet or anything like that. Because trust me, you'll go to jail a lot quicker mutilating an animal corpse than you will a human. And I mean, I'm serious. That you know, and that's fact.
Yeah.
You know, and I tell my guys, you know, if you find a body, you know, take hundreds of pictures of it, take hair samples from different parts of the body, you know, clip a nail, trying to, if you have swab, you know, get DNA out of the mouth at that point. You know, if you're able to have, you know, get some large syringe and, you know, some stuff to sit there. If the blood's not coagulated yet, try to pull out samples of the blood, you know, to take and, you know, so you can have DNA. If you have to pull a tooth,
Mm.
okay, teeth have DNA, holds DNA for, you know, 100 years after you're dead, thousands of years after you're dead.
Right.
So do that, but don't mutilate the body. You know, have an ink pad with paper, put ink on the palm, make a handprint on a piece of paper of the dermal ridges of the feet. You know, just takes steps to preserve physical evidence without mutilating the body, and then hide the body.
Yeah.
Okay, don't call the police. Don't, you know, take the body, because here's the thing: what a lot of people don't realize, every single state, okay, the land is either owned by the state, the county, or the city.
Right.
Okay, so they own all this. Okay, believe it or not, a lot of people don't realize this either. The house, the property you live on, you can have a farm. Okay,
Belongs to the
in
bank.
reality, you don't own that land that farm sits on.
Yeah.
Okay, you only thing you own is what that house sits on. Okay, because that's why you have eminent domain where the government can come on and take it. That's why you're paying property taxes. Property taxes is nothing more than rent.
Right.
Okay, that's all it is. It's rent. You may think it's yours. You may think you have a piece of paper that says it's yours, but no, baby, it's not. It belongs to that county. They can come in and move you out at any time and take that land. So you don't want to remove the body because they can get you for theft. It's the same thing like walking in to the woods and, you know, picking up feathers from a turkey or another bird, and flowers, they can get you on theft charges because that's park property. Okay, so hide the body. So obviously, what's the next thing you got to do? Okay, you got to call someone in to get it.
Right.
So you call in the DNR of that area, animal control. You call them, and police officers aren't going to know what to do because they're just going to go ahead and call them anyhow.
Right.
Okay, but prior to doing that, you get a couple guys out there with video cameras and ghillie suits, okay, and videotape you bringing these guys in and showing them where the body is. So you got video evidence that you turned the body over to a government agency.
Right.
Okay, and that's the way to do it properly.
I'm sure you'll get any kind of stories of, I guess, people that have maybe seen them telling you that, they've shot one or they have one that's dead or
Mhm.
stuff like that. Do you ever get any kind of stories like that?
Yeah, we've talked to plenty of people who've shot them. We actually had one of our team members actually shoot one point blank in the chest, and it didn't do anything. Did not do anything with a 357 Magnum, shot at point blank. Now this guy is, he's a high-ranking Mason. He has impeccable credentials. This guy's very well known, very well liked. He's in the public eye. He would have no reason to make this up. And if he said he shot one, up close range with 357 Magnum, he shot this thing. Okay. And I believe him because, like you said, this guy's too perfect to make a lie up to ruin his credibility.
Right.
We talked to people that had bodies and buried them, and it's well, where'd you bury? Well, I didn't bury him. My daddy buried him when he shot him. I was just young, and
Right.
I don't know. It's somewhere around yonders. I said, okay, when you dig it up, let me know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things. You always hear stories about people that have shot a Bigfoot or, something, especially I remember a couple of times hearing stories about that actually happening here in Texas. But they never, somehow or another, they forgot where they buried it or something. It's always something, So, but like you said, until we actually see some kind of physical proof,
Hmm.
it's just kind of like an actual like body of one and such like that. But
Well, you got to look at it this way, okay? Um, let's say a body of a dog man or even a body of a Bigfoot is found, okay, and it's brought out to you on the 6 o'clock news,
right,
okay. You have to understand something. Science doesn't like to be proven wrong.
nope,
Okay. They don't want to change what's out there. Okay. So they would classify a Bigfoot or classify Dogman as something other than what it is. Okay. To prove that this thing didn't exist. Oh, it's a feral, some type of a feral dog.
hmm,
Okay. This is some type of a feral man.
right,
Okay. With werewolfism disease or something where where the humans have the body with the hair, or something to that effect.
right,
Okay. That's the way they would do it. Um, I believe they've done it before. There's a couple cases where strange looking canines were killed. And in these pictures, there's one where this guy shot this wolf, this huge black wolf, and the DNR ended up picking it up after he shot it. They showed up, and I got the picture. This thing is odd. I mean, this thing is really, it looks like a wolf, don't get me wrong.
mhm,
But when you look at its eyes, because the eyes were open, and you look at the body, how the body's laying there, and you look at the paws, man, this is not your typical large black wolf. I mean,
right,
I think this guy actually shot one. Okay. And this is why the DNR showed up. And like I said, it's just the facial features of this wolf is more human characteristics
Hmm.
to it, even though it's a wolf's head. The best way to explain it to compare to what a regular wolf would have looked like. I mean, it's odd.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely. I mean, you always kind of hope maybe someday somebody has one or whatever. But like you said, even if you were to find one, the powers that the powers that be wouldn't want that kind of information getting out. As you can see from even the Smithsonian, who treks all around the world picking up
Mhm.
bones from giants and hiding them as well. It's just one of those things that they just like you said, they don't want science to change, and if they have to, if somebody finds something that they can't explain, then they don't want to lose grants, or they don't want to lose.
Well, it's not so that you have to understand the Smithsonian Institute. I mean, they're still moving stuff from that's on paper into databases. That is how much stuff they got. The Smithsonian only puts out specimens if they have more than one. I will guarantee you, if I had $1 million, okay, I would bet that $1 million in somewhere inside the Smithsonian Institute in a crate under a bunch of other crates or under some stairwell or something like that, there are remains of a Bigfoot and possibly a dogman, and they just don't know what it is because they don't have other specimens, or they may have just bits and pieces of it. Now, to give you an example, when Monster Quest did this show about um, the short-nosed bear, which was an ancient bear, where people were seeing this large short-nosed bear. So this guy shot and killed one. Well, his father, I think it was, that shot and killed one and gave the skull to the Smithsonian. Well, they went and tried to get the skull to look at the skull, and they had to go through heck and high water just to get the Smithsonian to let them see the skull. Well, when they found the skull, it took the Smithsonian 3 weeks to find the skull for the show, and they still would not let them take pictures of it. What they did, they allowed a um, biologist go in behind closed doors to look at the skull. Okay, see, this is it goes to show how secretive they are. And it goes to show they really don't know where everything is. If it took them 3 weeks just to locate the skull, that means that, you know, it's not in the database yet, or it's still in some written down ledger somewhere where it's located.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully, I wouldn't like to think that they would be hiding information from the public and as such, but
Oh, they are.
yeah,
They're
it's
hiding. Yeah, they're hiding. I mean, of course they are, because like you said, they don't want to give up the grants. They don't want to give up the money. I mean, if they had a Bigfoot remains on display, look at how much money they would make.
yeah,
Look how much money they, monetize the damn thing. Okay. Because, the thing of it is, if you monetize it, then people are going to lose interest.
right,
Plain and simple. If it's like, put it right out there in front of people, and oh wow, that's cool, and then they lose interest. I mean, people don't have no common sense that runs our government or these agencies when it comes to stuff like this. Salt Fork State Park did this. They
right,
had so many people coming up to their park and damaging stuff looking for Bigfoot. So they end up monetizing it, putting books out, stuffed animals, having conferences, stuff like that. Okay. And then finally, people lose interest. Okay. That's how they did it.
yeah,
Okay. You know, that's how they got rid of the problem.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it could also be. I mean, I was speaking with one of our guests in the last episode, and we were talking about the disclosure of all these UFOs and such lately. But so like people like yourself and other people that have been in the field for a long time, I mean, you need no such proof that that they're actually out there.
It's common sense.
Yeah, we're talking about UFOs, and it was asked them the same question. I was like, do you think one day they're just going to go ahead and tell us everything? I mean, it's not like he needed any kind of proof from the government that that they actually exist. I mean, he's been investigating it for over like what,
Let,
25
let-
years.
let me put it to you this way, okay? Everybody knows. Let's say they took a world survey. What do you believe in? Ghosts, Bigfoot, UFOs, Loch Ness monster, blah 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 blah. Okay, UFOs will be number one, guaranteed.
All right.
Ghosts would be number two. Okay, on the list. Okay, what people believe. So people aren't stupid, so they know that there's something out there. I used to believe that if the president of the United States came on TV and said, look, UFOs exist, they are real, they have visited our planet, we have downcraft, we have bodies. So far, they haven't made a threat to us. If they do, we will do what's necessary to save humanity. Okay. Well, for one, people in the back of their mind saying, well, you knew about this and you lied to us. Okay. So it's going to be hard for us to trust you that you're going to protect us. Okay. So what happens is they're going to go to bed that night. They're going to wake up that morning. They're going to have breakfast with their family, breakfast with their kids, get their kids off to school. They're going to go to work. They got something to talk about. They're going to come home. They're going to have dinner. They're going to go to a soccer game. Life's going to go on. I used to really believe this is how it would happen because people knew in the back of their mind that these things were already there. So it's no big shock to us. Okay. But after COVID-19 hit and you saw how everybody went to sheep, acted like sheep, and believed every crock of BS that the government and the Center for Disease Control is putting out, goes to show if they release stuff on UFOs, people are going to go nuts.
Yep.
Literally go nuts because they're not going to be able to handle it. If they couldn't handle the COVID, they're not going to be able to handle, UFOs. And you being a veteran, you know this as well as I do. Okay, if this country was ever attacked, okay, by an alien species, the United States military's job is to protect government government assets, and keep a running government up. That's it.
Right.
They're not going to go into Fort Worth, Texas, Cincinnati, Ohio, or whatever, and put a bunch of guns and ammunition down and say, guys, protect the town. They're not going to do that. Every single resource is going to go to the military. You are on your own to protect your family and your community.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, they'll come to your town if the alien threat is there or an outside threat is there, and they'll fight them on your turf. Okay. But you're there to protect yourself. And American people know this. And it goes back to, well, you lied to us that they didn't exist. And then you're telling us you're going to believe us. And that's bullcrap because you're not. You're going to maintain a working operational government. And the United States military is going to be protecting government assets to keep the country going. They're not going to give a damn about, protecting these cities unless there's something in that city that is essential to keeping that government going. Yeah. And people in the military know that. They absolutely know that. And the civilian people are starting to realize that now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I live in Texas, so I like my odds. Everybody and their mothers out here is, freaking carrying some kind of weapon. So I'm not too worried about that. But, and even like you said, everybody was falling apart. I mean, you can't really trust all the people nowadays. I mean, 7% of the US population still believe that chocolate milk actually comes from brown cows. So, it's just one of those things
Eh,
you can't get
well,
to some people,
right, but look at this, okay? What There's a great possibility, a really great possibility, okay, that the human species came from Mars.
Right.
Okay, they know that there was some type of civilization on that planet. There was some type of nuclear war they know happened on Mars because there's evidence of that. Okay, so our species might came here. Let's what in order for our species to thrive, maybe they killed the dinosaurs off, because they were predators, you know, and if the government knows that, then that destroys religion.
Right.
Okay, is there a God then? Is there Jesus? Yeah, there's still a God, there's still Jesus, because God and Jesus made all these other planets. Okay, you're still who you are, because whatever base religion is here had to been on that planet at one time or another,
Right.
in one form or another.
True. Yeah. I don't know. It's all definitely kind of up in the air right now. We're just,
Yeah.
I mean, here in Texas, we never really closed down, so it's not like, not compared to the rest of the country, especially not compared to California. We've always been up and running, so we didn't really have any kind of issues here.
Dude,
Which,
you got to get rid of all them people who moved in from California. They are destroying your state.
yeah,
Pack them up and move them to New Mexico or Louisiana. I mean, get
yeah,
them the heck out of your state.
we've
You know,
been talking about it's. I mean, we can already forget about Austin. That's like a mini San Francisco.
yeah.
It's just gone. But I mean, the rest of us here, like here in Dallas, we're still holding on a bit, but it's starting to creep in. It's going to be kind of.
Hey, have you ever talked to Ken Gerhardt
No, I've
from
not.
Texas?
No.
Yeah, Ken Gerhardt lives in Texas. He's a cryptozoologist. Been on several TV shows. He was on the oh god, Missing in Alaska TV show
Okay.
that was on. He lives there in Texas, and like I said, author, very very knowledgeable guy on a whole scale of cryptozoology. Um, he's about your age probably,
Right.
um, but he lives there in Texas. Um, he's definitely one you want to get on your show. He's not a veteran, but he traveled the world as a child to different countries with his father, and that's how he got into cryptozoology all over the world. The guy's been all over the world, and he's definitely. I would look him up, let him know I sent him your way. He's definitely one you want to talk to. He's got some very interesting stuff to tell you.
Awesome.
So
Yeah,
definitely look into that.
definitely look them
And
up.
like I say, he's a hometown boy. So
Right, right. Yeah, that always
yeah,
helps.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, so as we mentioned before, I don't think we did mention that. So, how many books have you actually put out so far?
Oh gosh, let's
A whole
see.
bunch of them.
Uh, I probably did 12 or 13.
Okay,
Most of them are no longer in print.
right.
Um, but I think I've got like maybe 5 that's still available on Amazon
Okay,
and stuff. I have a couple of documentaries on there that I did. One on the Wisconsin werewolf and one on the beast of land between the lakes. You can find those on Amazon also.
okay, awesome. Yeah, can they find information about that on your website as well? We didn't plug the
Uh,
website earlier.
yeah, I don't have anything on my website. We have podcasts on our website that people can listen to, but none of I didn't post any of my books because I kind of keep that separate from the organization. But all they have to do is just type in, um, my name and books, and all my books will show up. Like I said, I have some. I just actually got out of a lawsuit with one guy. I wrote a book. I wrote 2 books actually, and he took the books and plagiarized them, recopy them,
Mm,
and published them, and then tried to say I took it from him.
it's always fun.
Well, yeah, but I got, copyright information showing my books came out first,
Right.
and him and his friends just totally destroyed me on Amazon, you know. And so I just went ahead and pulled the books. Um, and he started going after some of my other books because he lost a lawsuit. Um, and so if you see anything negative about my books on any of the feedbacks, it's him and his family and his friends doing that to try to destroy my credibility, because we had this very long lawsuit that went for many years, and finally it's over and I won.
Nice.
And he's mad about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Kick rocks. I don't
yeah,
like it.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah, absolutely.
exactly.
Yeah, and that website actually is also for everybody. If you want to go ahead and look them up, is North American Dogman Project.com. You can also find them on Facebook, North American Dogman Project as well. You guys have any big plans coming up? Any interesting stories that you guys are looking at?
Well, we're finishing up on our documentary on the Germantown Werewolf.
Okay.
Um, I just filmed for a TV show, Mysteries Decoded,
Right.
on the CW. I did a segment on Dogman for them. I'm working with the Travel Channel right now on two shows that we're going to be filming in September and October, and they'll be for next year on the Dogman subject. One is dealing with the beast of land between the lakes, and the other one is dealing with law enforcement and military people who've actually seen Dogman. So we have, like I said, a lot of former police officers and police officers across the country talk about their encounters.
Right.
People who are in the military that's seen them talk about their encounters. We have other witnesses that are talking about it. It's going to be they're going to be interesting shows.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds extremely interesting. I'll be definitely looking after that. Well, Mr. Cook, I really appreciate your time today.
Yep.
It was great. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks for
appreciate
coming
it.
on.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. For everybody, if you guys want to check them out, like I mentioned before, North American Dogman Project.com, Facebook as well, North American Dogman Project. Look them up on Amazon as well. Get the books. I've been looking out for the documentaries as well. And like I mentioned before, if you guys aren't already subscribers on our YouTube channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate it, as well as a like button. If you guys want to catch us on the go, you can check us out on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, as well as iHeartRadio. I'll have all the social media links down below. Like I mentioned before, we just got on locals.com, so that's up and running as well. If you have any questions or comments for myself or our guests or topic recommendations, you can email us at thetruthDefenders1776@gmail.com. Really appreciate you guys stopping in. Everybody stay safe out there, stay blessed, and most of all, stay frosty.
Perfect.